Hello, I'm Judge Rex Barbas from the 13th Judicial Circuit, and you're watching Tampa Bay Community Network.
Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government. Do you ever wonder about how the courts work? Well, if you'll stay with us today, you'll get a really good picture of how the courts work. I have with us the Honorable Rex Barbas, who is with the 13th Judicial Circuit, and I'm really excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
You know, it's really funny. We became friends on Facebook.
That's true.
And then I saw that you were a judge, and I thought, oh, wait, I've wanted to have a judge on here. And I said, what'd you do? And he said, yeah, I'll do it. So it's exciting to have you here.
It's exciting to be here.
How did you get involved with the law to start with? I assume you were an attorney. Where did you go to law school? What drove you to it?
Well, I went to law school at Loyola University in New Orleans, Louisiana. I actually went to law school as a concession of my father, who wanted me to be a doctor.
I'd have been a dentist if it had been that.
And basically he said if I couldn't be a doctor, at least I could be a lawyer. So I applied to law school, went to law school, never intending to ever practice law. I wanted to go to law school and then come back out and be a journalist.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I ended up going to law school, and in my second semester I was 9th in my class out of 300. And my criminal law professor couldn't believe that I did not want to practice law and was doing that well in law school. So she took me to watch a jury trial in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, like the next county over from New Orleans. And I fell in love with it. From then on, all I ever wanted to do was become a trial lawyer and eventually a judge. And I accomplished that.
So how did you get from Louisiana over to Florida?
Well, I'm originally from Tampa.
Oh, okay. So you had family here.
I had family here. I went to school, undergraduate school and graduate school in Louisiana. And then once I graduated, I came back here. Although I did take the Louisiana bar.
What kind of law did you practice when you came back here? There are a variety of different practices. It's sort of like being a doctor. You can do the nose, the ears, the throat, whatever. And that's the way law is it not also?
Oh, yes. I started off as an assistant state attorney. So my first 5 years in practice was exclusively in the area of criminal law, although I did a lot of the civil work for the state attorney's office here in Hillsborough County. Once I left there, I started doing more civil work, and I eventually became board certified in civil trial litigation.
Okay.
Which is similar to being board certified as a doctor.
Now, once you became board certified, then you limited yourself to certain kinds of cases?
I did complex, what they call complex civil litigation, primarily in federal district court. My cases involve contract litigation, construction litigation, medical malpractice, both plaintiff and defense. So those are the areas of law that I primarily practice in private practice.
What drew you to the bench?
When I first graduated from law school, I wanted to become the best trial lawyer you could possibly be. And once accomplishing that, I wanted to become a judge, frankly. And what I did was, in 1994, I became what they call, in 1992, I became board certified as a civil trial lawyer. In 1994, I received my AV rating, which is the top 7% of all lawyers on a peer review.
Really?
Once having achieved that in 1996, I decided I wanted to run. And I took an 80% pay cut to become a judge. When everybody wondered why I was doing that. But frankly, I felt like I needed to give something back.
Well,
even though I wanted to do it all along, I wanted to give something back. And so I have for the last 19 years.
Wow, 19 years on the bench.
Yes, sir.
Now, I think when we talked first, you were telling me that you're going to, because of age, not be able to run again. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have mandatory retirement at age 70. So at age 70, I become incompetent by law. Ironically, at age 71, I can become a senior judge. So I become competent again. So for a whole year, I become incompetent by law.
So what's the difference between a judge and a senior judge? Is that, do they fill in? I mean, it's obviously you can't run for election as a senior judge?
No, you don't. You're appointed by the Supreme Court as a senior judge, and then you substitute in for regular sitting judges. At a very good rate for the
But
citizens.
for a whole year, you can't do anything.
We're not supposed to. We can volunteer to do it, and we're allowed to volunteer to do it. We just can't be paid to do it by the state.
That doesn't seem quite right. In fact, I don't like, in full disclosure, I don't like any kind of term limits. I think the ballot box is our term limit in all elections, but that's
Well,
an
I
argument
don't
for
know.
another day.
I don't know of any other business or occupation where, when you're at the top of your field, you're told you can't be there anymore. Whether it's a legislative, a mayoral, a city councilman, or a judge. I don't understand the reasoning behind that.
I'm glad we don't have it here because I'd have had to quit 5 years ago. There are some that maybe believe that'd be a good idea, but I enjoy it and it's fun. And I think that as long as there's no problems with cognitive issues, just an artificial 70 is kind of silly, especially in today's world.
And I was going to say it, especially in today's world. I think the statutes were created back when our life expectancy was 67, 68, or our life expectancy is in the mid to late 70s now. So it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
How do judges run? If somebody was deciding, young attorney decided they want to run for the bench, is it different than if they were going to run for the legislature or something?
Well, the only qualification, first of all, the judges, we have elected bench, what they call the trial levels, which are county judges and circuit judges. They run for office. The district court and the Supreme Court is appointed by the Florida governor when a vacancy occurs. In the trial levels, if you're running for a county judge, all you have to have is a law license. If you're running for a circuit judge position, all you have to have is a law license and 5 years having been a licensed attorney. And then you're qualified to run.
Okay, now, what about raising money and things like that? There are some judicial canons on that, aren't there? Or
they're very
containments?
strict. There are very, very strict canons. First of all, we cannot solicit money from anybody individually. We have to form what is called a committee, and then the committee, those individuals within the committee solicit funds to run for the campaign. We cannot attend any political party function unless all the candidates running in that race are attending that particular
really? So if one says, I don't want to go?
Neither one of us can go then.
Huh.
And we cannot attend political functions other than when we're running. If, for instance, right now, since I am in my last term, I cannot attend a Republican or a Democratic or any other political function by a party.
Really?
No.
That really kind of surprises me. I didn't realize that.
Florida is nonpartisan in regards to judicial races, and it's very strictly upheld.
So you can't even go, even though you're not running at the time?
No. I cannot go, for instance, let's say the Republican Party of Sun City is giving a function, and they want me to speak. I can't do that.
You can't do it?
No.
Wow, that's something that really surprised me. I bet you a lot of you didn't know that either. Let's talk about the levels of courts.
All right.
There's a common pleas court.
No, actually, Florida has what is called a unified system. We have county courts, circuit courts, district courts, and the Florida Supreme Court. And what they mean by a unified system is you were going to start talking about the court of common pleas, and then there's a criminal court and so on. What happens is if you're a county judge, you are assigned to the different county divisions depending on where the chief judge needs you. If you're a circuit judge, it's the same way. You are appointed, once you run, you're a circuit judge, and you can be assigned to different divisions.
Differentiate between county and circuit.
County judge, there are 67 counties in the state of Florida.
Okay.
Each county has a set of judges who handle both misdemeanors and small claims courts.
Okay.
And traffic court.
Okay. They don't handle criminal courts.
They have misdemeanors are crimes, but are crimes which are punishable by less than a year.
Less than a felony. Okay.
Less than a felony. Then you have circuit judges and circuit courts. The 67 counties are divided into 20 circuits. Those judges, who are circuit judges, handle the following topics: They handle family law, which is our euphemism for divorce court.
Okay.
Adoptions, dependency, which is foster children, which judges there determine whether a child will be removed from parents and whether the child will be returned to the parents or the parental rights terminated. You have juvenile delinquency court, which is, I think, self-explanatory. You have circuit criminal or felony court, which are crimes punishable by more than a year all the way to capital crime. Then we have civil court, just like county handles cases involving disputes less than $15,000. Circuit court is greater than $15,000 in disputes, and it's unlimited on the other side. And I believe I just said all the divisions.
What happens now?
Probate.
When I run in the 13th Judicial Circuit, okay?
All right.
Do I run for family law, or do I just run to be in that pool of judges, and then it's up to the chief judge to determine where I go?
The pool of judges, it's a pool of judges basically, and we're numbered by groups. So like you have group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that just identifies the particular seat. But once you become a circuit judge, you're assigned by the chief judge to a particular division. For instance, I started off in divorce court or family court, and I spent 4 years there. As you note, when I was in private practice, I never practiced that.
Right.
So you have to learn. The whole idea is that we used to have divided courts. In other words, we used to have probate judges, we used to have civil judges, and we used to have criminal judges. Well, if you had less cases in civil and you needed judges going over to criminal because the criminal cases had increased, there was no way to manipulate that. You had to then create a new civil judge. When we say a unified system, that means the chief judge then can move the judges around to the divisions where they're needed.
So in effect, he could, or she could, whichever the chief judge happens to be, decide that you don't have a case this week, and even though you don't generally do family law, you're going to be over here in this particular seat.
That's correct, and that does happen. And we actually switch off sometimes with other judges when they need help. For instance, if the trials that I have scheduled for some reason settle out at the last minute, I will volunteer to other judges if they need help. If they have too many trials going on and they can't handle all the trials. And it could be in delinquency court or it could be in felony court.
So you really, when you walk in there, you really have to be able to handle everything.
Well, that's what the Supreme Court, that was the whole idea of the 1968 convention when we recreated our Constitution. The idea is that you can move judges around to the places where you need them. And in fact, the chief judge has the power to actually raise a county judge up to a circuit seat when we need another judge over there, yes.
You know, it's interesting because I watch a judge run and they talk about their strengths. You know, I've got so many years of divorce law.
Right.
I'll make a great judge in the family law section, but they may not even end up there.
Well, like I said, I never did divorce law. That's where I spent my first 4 years.
So it's a matter, when you're looking at these candidates, you've got to look at them as to how versatile they can be over the entire spectrum of law.
I think that's important. Their reputation for veracity, their reputation for being honest, their ability to make reasoned decisions, not on personalities, but on the law and what the law is, as you apply the facts to the law. That's what's important. I heard one lawyer one time tell me, I really don't want a judge on the bench who favors me. And I looked at him and I said, why are you saying that? And he goes, because the next guy up may be more favored by that judge than he is by me. So it makes a lot of sense. You don't want somebody who favors one side or the other.
No, that's true. And it's an interesting thing. I do have a background in the law. I'm not a lawyer. But some of the things that I found were interesting is the way attorneys go at each other in court. And you think they hate each other. You see the press conferences, all of this. And while they're waiting for the jury to go out or come back in, they're out having coffee together. It's a game.
I remember I told you, a good friend of mine and we used to have trials against each other all the time, in complex medical malpractice cases, both plaintiff and defense. And we ended up in front of this one judge several times. And in the middle of this one trial, which very seldom ever happens, this other lawyer and I got threatened by the judge with criminal contempt if we kept acting the way we were in front of the jury. What was ironic was he and I were very dear friends, and we used to go out to dinner all the time. So,
But it's like two football teams coming out on the field. You might go for a beer afterward, but now we're heading.
that's right. When you're in the middle of the game, you're there in the middle of the game.
Let's talk about frivolous lawsuits. I think there are an awful lot of people who, like myself, think that with all the trolling that I see by law firms out there, well, you should go to court on this. Yeah, They go to court and they use up a lot of court time, and the attorney might or might not win something, but somebody's going to pay a lot of money for it.
Oh yeah, and
To me, the judges, a lot of these just seem on the surface at least to be really frivolous suits.
well, the suits you hear about are the unusual suits, frankly. I have no problem awarding attorney's fees and costs against somebody, a lawyer, who brings a frivolous lawsuit, and I've done it a couple times. It really doesn't happen as often as people want to think it happens. I think the cases you hear about are the unusual cases where really, when you go, even I go, what was that about? But I don't think it happens as frequently as people think it happens.
But the judge has the authority to say, this is frivolous, and the attorney pays the fees, not the client, the
That's right.
attorney, because he's the one that's supposed to know better than to bring it into court, correct?
That's correct. And if they do bring a frivolous lawsuit, and a frivolous lawsuit is defined as something that has no basis in fact or law. And if it has no basis in fact and law, it shouldn't be there. And that does happen, but not that frequently.
There was an attorney here in the state of Florida, and his client was a disabled person. And they would go around and look for some small mom and pop operation that had some problem. They couldn't get a wheelchair through here or something.
Right.
And then they offered a foul suit, and they never wanted to go to court on it, but they collected a lot of money from mom and pops, and the mom and pops had to pay for an attorney. Seems to me that there needs to be some work done on that, if nothing else.
Well, it's ironic because you brought that up, because somebody brought that up with me and my wife recently on a business that we have together. It has nothing to do with the law, but somebody was commenting about our sidewalk outside our business. And I was thinking to myself, well, the problem with, I'm not sure if those are frivolous lawsuits or not. And the reason I'm saying that is that's based on the, I'm trying to remember the Disabled Americans Act.
Yeah, ADA.
The ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. I had it backwards. And the accessibility of persons to facilities. Now, the problem with that is there's a grandfathering into that. You know, you have an older building that was built in the 1920s and 1930s, and there hasn't been any modifications made to the building. You don't have to make it ADA compliant, just as you're supposed to make an accommodation for those individuals. Where you have a problem is when you have these people going around like you're talking about, trying to find ADA non-compliant businesses and then bringing a lawsuit against them. When in fact there probably isn't a lawsuit against them because the building doesn't qualify for an ADA replenishment or modification. The people are settling because it costs more to defend. And
Exactly.
It's not the people,
That's my point.
and it's wrong, but I really don't.
There's got to be a way.
I haven't been able to figure out a way because that never involves the courts.
That's true.
See? So there's no way for us to monitor that type of situation because it's never being brought into court. The insurance company, most often, is settling with the complainant at a very minimal cost to the insurance company because the insurance company
They already
is
have
looking
the
at,
attorneys.
right, and they're looking at it strictly from an economic standpoint. How much is it going to cost us to defend this or get it thrown out of court? So we really don't get involved in that. I think more and more I've heard, and this is just, I have no statistics to back this up, but I've heard more and more where the insurance companies are not honoring those claims anymore, are just telling people, look, we're not going to do it. It's like Coca-Cola. You try and sue Coca-Cola, you're never going to get a settlement. All right? You're going to go to court no matter what. And I think if the insurance companies started doing that
I think
on
so
some of
too.
these ridiculous claims, you'll see it stop.
It's my understanding, for instance, with an insurance company, and correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say I have a $10,000 policy with them, and somebody sues me for $100,000. The insurance company can just say, "No, I'm going to pay our $10,000. You're on your own." Is that correct?
Conceivably, they can, but I think even the small
Without having to defend it, they can just say,
that doesn't very often happen anymore, because I think more and more, and that's why I say anecdotally, I've heard
Okay.
that the insurance companies are not playing out these nuisance claims anymore like they used to. So if you have some type of injury and there's no substantiation for it, the insurance company may offer you $500 and just say, "You better go away, or we're not paying anything." And most lawyers are not going to take that nuisance case. And I'll tell you why. Because even that smaller case, you still have to produce facts. You still have to produce evidence.
a lot of hungry lawyers out there, though.
I know, but for instance, and I'm in a case right now in which just to bring a doctor into court to testify, the average doctor, depending on the specialty, charges anywhere from $700 to $2,500 an hour to testify. So if you're only going to recover $1,500 or $2,000, it doesn't make a whole lot of economic sense. So you don't see those type of lawsuits very often anymore. And I think the insurance companies have recognized the fact, anecdotally, that they're not going to pay it anymore, because in the long run, it doesn't pay them to pay out these small amounts.
Makes sense. What would you like the people to know about the courts? What do you think are some of the misconceptions? What things would you, if you had an opportunity to say, "Hey, what you really need to know about the courts is..."
What you need to know about the courts is you need to know more about the people running for judgeships. I don't think any other person gets involved in people's everyday lives more than a judge. You think about it. We determine whether kids are taken away from parents and whether those kids are returned to the parents.
Sure.
We decide if you get a divorce, if you have to pay alimony or don't have to pay alimony, how much alimony, whether you have to pay child support, the amount of the child support, who gets the primary custody of the child. And it's not called that anymore, but civil actions, how much you will recover. For instance, an automobile accident, assume that you're badly injured and you can no longer work. Well, the judge is the one who's going to be making the determination of what a jury hears and making that final determination. In criminal court, the judges are the ones who sentence people, order restitution. So, in probate, how you inherit, judges make that determination. And what fascinates me is the fact that very few people really know anything about the judiciary or the people within the judiciary, our qualifications, how long we've practiced, our reputations within the community. You would think that with judges having such a vital impact on everyday lives of individuals, you would like to know more about us. But we seem to be the least known of any governmental entity.
Should I plead guilty now? In all honesty, we tried. Both Phyllis and I tried. Everything we do as far as voting. I've never missed an election since I was 21 years of age.
You and I both.
Anytime I could vote, I voted. But sometimes I will admit that I haven't necessarily done the best job. There's so many candidates and so many things. And here's the way Phyllis and I choose a judge many times, and I hope she doesn't hate me for saying this, the person I'm going to mention. But one of your court reporters is a lady by the name of Tommy Berryhill.
Oh, I know Tommy very well.
I trust Tommy implicitly. She knows the judiciary, and I'll ask her, "Tommy, who should we vote for?" And she'll give me a list of people she thinks are good. So you better be nice to your court reporters out there, judges, because they do influence people.
Well, I think a lot of people ask other lawyers who to vote for. They'll ask people who works in the clerk's office. They'll ask the court reporters. And I think, those are people who have a lot of knowledge regarding...
But they're in there every day.
Right, exactly. They know what kind of persons are appearing in front of the judges. They know how the people act, how respectful they are of the courts, how knowledgeable they are, how prepared they are. That astounds me when a lawyer comes into my courtroom and isn't prepared. And my greatest fear is to have one of these lawyers who are never prepared when they appear in front of me running for a judgeship. And I'm not going to mention names, all right?
And that has to be a problem. And when someone doesn't show up prepared and they want delays, that costs money.
Yes. And it delays a person's ability to recover for their harm. It delays the person's ability to recover their children from the court.
Well, you were saying that a great percentage of the number of cases that are filed never go to court, never go on. They're settled. You get a jury ready, and they don't do it.
By far, I would say 99%, 97% of all cases that are filed never end up in an actual trial. I think sometimes when we have two opponents, and it can be a husband and wife getting a divorce, and they can't agree between them, well, that's why they hire lawyers, to come up with a conclusion. And usually lawyers in that situation will also try and figure out where the common areas are, where they can commonly agree. That's what mediation is for instance. And right now in divorces—
How does mediation fit into this whole scheme of the courts?
Well, mediation is where you have a third person who goes between two parties and tries to find out—
They're not judges, they're mediators?
Well, they can be retired judges.
Okay, all right. They could be those senior judges.
They can be those senior judges.
A whole nother career for
A whole
you.
nother career, and they actually make more money than— never mind, I'm not going to get into that. The mediator is a third person who tries to find common area between two parties, and because they're acting independently and not disclosing what one side says to them as opposed to what the other side says to them, they have generalized knowledge of both sides.
Oh, okay.
And they can see where they overlap. And by seeing where they overlap, they can come to certain conclusions.
So we're doing Venn diagrams, huh?
Exactly.
Laying them over each other?
That's exactly what they're doing. And that's a great example. And I need to use that the next time I teach a class on it.
And you are teaching, correct, or have been?
Oh, I have been teaching. I've taught since I was in law school. I was a teaching fellow in law school.
Oh, really?
And I taught all the way up until last year in graduate, mostly in MBA programs.
I think you're the kind of instructor that I would enjoy. In fact, I had one of the people that I had business law from was one of the people that I faced with workman's comp cases when I was handling him for NCR. And he was great. I just love him. He had a wonderful attitude, and he'd take me apart after and say, you know, you should have said this, you should have said that. I said, wait a minute, why are you telling me? He said, if you win at this level, go on to the next one. It doesn't matter.
That's right. And you know what? I love teaching for one reason and one reason only. I learned more from my students. They pushed me, they had asked me questions, and I really love to teach because I learn as much as I teach.
I think the very next time I have one of the state legislators on the program, I'm going to start asking them, why do we have to retire judges at 70? Because they're the ones that can do something about it, right? Is that a legislative decision?
Well, it's a legislative, I believe it's a constitutional, because right in our Constitution it actually puts it at age 70.
I just can't believe Florida and their Constitution. I mean, flying pigs and all or pregnant pigs, I'm sorry. But it's just silly that everything has to go into the Constitution.
I know, you're right. We should have a Constitution like the U.S. Constitution, which encompasses everything. It's supposed to be a guidepost. It's not supposed to be a law.
Yeah, it just makes no sense to me at all. Well, the Honorable Rex Barbas, 13th Judicial Circuit, I am so pleased that you were on the show with me today.
Well, it's been a pleasure being here. It really
and
has
I
been.
look forward to having you back. Will you come back another time?
Yes, I will. I'd be happy to.
Maybe bring the Chief Justice and we'll talk to him about shuffling people around.
Judge Figueroa would love to be here.
I thank you so much.
You're very
Ladies
welcome.
and gentlemen, I'm Bill Hodges. This has been Spotlight on Government. You're unique, you're special, and you're great. Tell them so often, because you are, you know. And we'll see you on the next Spotlight on Government. And again, Your Honor, we're delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you.